Hello, I've just got back from Germany from the St. Georg Klinik doing hyperthermia. I was there for 5 weeks and I wanted to do this video whilst it's still kind of fresh in my mind. Well, it's going to be difficult for it to never be fresh in my mind, to be honest. How the whole 5 weeks went and kind of just break down a few fundamentals that I think you should know before going, if you're deciding on going, or at least going through hypothermia in general. Obviously, you're watching this video because you've already got to the point of searching for hyperthermia for Lyme. So you've already done your homework and you've already gone down the rabbit hole. But I just wanted to, share my thoughts and basically the experience as a whole, just to be as informed as possible for you, so you know going forwards what to expect, if it's for you, and just how to navigate the entire thing, really. So on my previous video it was after my first week of just done hypothermia. I did my first video and the plan was to do a video each week. But as I did my second hypothermia, it was intense. I didn't have the energy to do another video. So 4 weeks after that one, I'm back and I'm doing this one as like a whole kind of review of the clinic and the treatment. But to kick things off, really, I mean, the main question that you want answered is, did it work? And the answer is, I don't know yet. It's too early to tell. I spoke with a lot of people anecdotally that have said after the first hypothermia, they saw a huge, increase in vitality and health and energy and that kind of thing. That wasn't my case at all. And I think realistically for most people, it's a tough going, a few weeks while you're at the clinic. And then there's the recovery period after. And to be realistic, you can expect at least 3-6 months, if not 12 months, until you see a marked improvement. Annoyingly and frustratingly, but it's worth it, I think. I'm optimistic, for sure. So that's something I want to get out the gate, is obviously, your core question is, does it work? And at this stage, I don't know. I've spoken with a few people that have done it since, and a few people have kind of said the same thing as me, of still exhausted from the treatments, still exhausted from before going, but there's something has changed, something feels different in the body. So we'll see. My plan, again, will be in, let's say, 5-6 months' time, I'm going to be retesting, and then I'll do an actual proper, end diagnosis of if it helped me. If I've seen any improvements in that time, what the results say, if it's comes back as a negative for both Lyme and co-infections, we will see. But for now, I'm just focusing on recovery. But anyway, I've got a few points there. I'm going to build this or turn this video into some chapters so you can skip ahead if it makes sense to do so. But the core second question, I already answered it in my previous video, was why I chose hypothermia. And the simple answer is speed, really. I've done herbals. I've been dealing with Lyme for the last 4+ years now. I was so sensitive to everything. Herbals I could barely manage. Like, I'd titrate up to like the most amount possible, and then I'll crash out after like 2 weeks and have to stop and take like 2, 3, and 4 weeks off and then try again. Everything I would try I was just so hypersensitive to everything. I didn't even want to attempt antibiotics, because if I was reacting like that to herbals, I didn't even want to think what antibiotics would have been like. And I've seen the accounts of people that have been on long-term antibiotics, and it's not fun. That said, they've also had great results, but it takes time, a year, 2 years sometimes, for people to see a really huge change. And I've been doing this, I've been dealing with ill health for almost a decade now. Prior to getting Lyme, I had mold toxicity from living in a moldy place. Then I had COVID, of course, and the jabs. Then I got Lyme on top, and it just all cascaded into just, it's been intense. But if you're watching this video, you know what it feels like, where you feel like you're dying, basically, and you wake up and it's just the worst struggle, and you can't even get out of bed. 2023 for me was the year that was just a write-off for me. Basically, I spent most of the time in the house. On a good day, I could go outside and walk briefly. On an average day, I was housebound. On the worst 8 days, which is like 2-3 days out of the week, I'd just be in bed, couldn't get out of bed. It was just so intense. So if you're watching this and you've been through that, or you're going through it now, it's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it's okay. You will get through the other side of it. It will be all good. Trust me. I've experienced the lows, so it can't get any lower, definitely. So going back to why I chose hypothermia, as I say, speed. I could choose the long route and keep trying the herbals and add in the antibiotics and spend the next couple of years going in these intense peaks of intensity. Or I could just, I see it as like navigating through, like, I'm in the UK, going to the US. You could choose the boat option, a paddle boat option that could take ages and it's very rough seas. Or you could choose a private jet. Just go over the ocean, get it done, probably hit some turbulence. You definitely will hit some turbulence, but you get to the same outcome much, much faster. So that was my ethos going into it. I was just frustrated. I've got a lot of things that I would like to achieve. Got a business that I'm running. I've been running a business for the entire time that I've had Lyme. God knows how. But a lot of things that I want to do. Even business aside, the most thing I want back is just my energy. Going back to the gym, but being able to walk without almost collapsing after 15, 20 minutes. That's the only really thing I'm looking for here. That's, if I can get that back, it's a success to me. That's how I view it. So that's why I chose hypothermia. And I chose the clinic in St. Georg in Germany because it's going to be the gold standard. There's other clinics around the world. There's one in Poland, one in Switzerland. There's the St. Aviv clinic in Mexico. I was contemplating Mexico, more so for the views and the weather. But then I read a few accounts of people that actually met people at the clinic in Germany that had been to St. Aviv and ended up going to the German clinic. So, but then I've seen a lot of people that have done really well in Germany in Mexico as well. So it just depends on individual basis. Depends on your needs. From what I understand, if you have Lyme and co-infections, St. George is the place to go. St. Aviv is more Lyme only, and it's more of like a spa experience versus Germany, which is very much a clinical setting. So depending on where you want to go and obviously where you live, you can make your decision based off that. So getting there, relatively straightforward for me, kind of. I'm in the UK, so I'm down in South Devon, so it took me a 3-hour train trip to Heathrow, then a 2-hour flight to Munich. And then when you are booked in with the clinic, they will book a taxi for you. That's the best way of doing it. You can get a train, but I wouldn't recommend it. Just get a taxi. They pick you up from the airport. It's about an hour hour and 10 minutes from the airport straight to the clinic. And you're in, job done. Just do that. They will arrange it for you. You don't have to worry about it. And then, so arrival, ordinarily, you would obviously be greeted by someone and they would show you to a room, show you around, tell you what's what. I arrived, it was a Friday or Thursday evening, I can't remember. Just after closing, it's like 6 p.m. I got there, 6:30. But I wasn't informed of anything. Like, I will get into this in the video, but sometimes the communication is lacking. It can be very lacking, to be honest. I wasn't told. They knew when I was getting in, but they didn't say, because you're getting in after hours, this is what you should do, or this is who you should call. They didn't give me any of that information. Thankfully, I was speaking with an amazing guy before on Facebook that was currently at the clinic. Bogdan, if you're watching, hello, thank you. And he recognized me. I was just walking around, just all these different empty corridors and stuff. But it was dinner time and he was eating, and he saw me and helped me out. He showed me where to go. He took me to the nurse's station where they take your initial vitals and bloods and all that kind of stuff. Again, I had no idea about any of this stuff. If it wasn't for him, I'd be just wandering around for hours. But ordinarily, if you're getting there during hours, they should meet you. If you know you're getting there after hours, tell them you're getting there after hours and tell them to tell you what to do or who to call, because again, they didn't tell me what to do, and that was quite annoying. Got in the room. I've got some photos and videos that I'll be overlaying if I find any that are worth sharing from my phone on top of this edit. Got into the room. If you're going and you're mold sensitive, I was told to do this, is to request the new wing, because they're night and day. The new wing, it's literally a brand new wing. The rooms are very nice and new. The old wing, I've seen the rooms. You wake up in one of the rooms after hypothermia, and they're pretty old and depressing looking. So I wouldn't want to have stayed in one of those rooms for 5 weeks, to be honest. New rooms are nice enough. If you get a double room, you get a fridge. The TV's nice and big. You don't have to worry about bringing anything to watch TV. It's got all the apps, all the good stuff on there, so you're covered. It's all good. And then so the first few days, you obviously have your initial chat with the doctors there. They run through all of your current situation. You would have already sent it in prior to that, before they even accept you, but they obviously run through what's going on, how everything's going. Sorry about that, just letting the courier in to my house. So they, initial chat with the doctors, and then they start getting you on some kind of pre-hypothermia treatment. So there's a therapy room where you do a mixture of detox foot baths, pulsed electromagnetic frequency, PMF, basically mats that you lie on, some blue light therapy, which is just these little goggles that you put on your head, blue light, LEDs in there. I don't really know if it does much, to be honest. That's kind of about it. You should also get something called a dark field blood analysis. This is something I didn't get. I didn't even know I was supposed to have it. It wasn't on my sheet. Again, I'll get into the annoyances of things later on in the video. But you'll also get your blood kind of looked at. Maybe you've already done it before, but they literally just get a finger prick, dry the blood, put it through a microscope, and then they can see the platelets. And then some people even saw spirochetes, actual Lyme, floating about in there, which is pretty cool. So if that's not on your sheet, request that you get that done. That should be done at the start. I got it done at the very end, which made no sense. There you go. So you'll do some initial treatments and be preparing for it. You'll be starting your IVs for antibiotics as well. Again, I hadn't really done antibiotics that much in my past, and as soon as they started kicking in, it was horrible. A lot of neurological side effects, like my brain was being twisted. I was on the toilet constantly. That wasn't fun, but it was fine. The side effects of antibiotics are never fun, as you probably already know if you've been on them. But that wasn't fun, but it's part of the process, so it was all good. And then you lead up to your first hypothermia. That's what it's all about. It's the main event, is the hypothermia. Going into doing hypothermia, I was very apprehensive, very nervous, because I know how sensitive I am. I didn't know how I would react to it, but I did it anyway, of course. So on the day of the hypothermia, you literally just go there straight, first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock. You go into the room. It's just a bed with this thing that comes down. It's called a heckler machine. You're just in an oven, basically. You just strip down. They put towels over you. They hook you up to your IV lines that you get put in, and then you say they say goodnight, and you just pass out in a few seconds. It's great, and then you wake up 6 hours later. For me, it was intense. It felt like I'd just been hit in the head with a baseball bat. That's how I felt when I woke up. Very groggy, obviously, drenched in sweat, and then they wheel you out in a wheelchair to the recovery room, which is actually one of the old wing rooms. But you're so out of it, you don't even care. Like, you probably won't even remember waking up half the time, or if you do, it's a blur. It was for me. Get wheeled into the room, straight into bed, and then you basically just, until you wake up that evening. So you go to the room about 4, and then you're pretty out of it until around usually 6 or 7. The nurses are constantly checking on you all the time, around the clock, because it's obviously such an intense thing. They're there monitoring you around the clock, so that's reassuring. Because I remember occasionally waking up, and there'd always be a nurse in there checking my vitals. At one point, I had really low blood pressure, so they're obviously checking it and then giving me stuff in my IV to help. They're giving you a lot of, obviously, hydrating IVs and various different things to kind of bring you back up. And then, you will spend the night in the room, and then in the morning, you'll go back to your room, and then the fun begins, really. So the first one, I felt exhausted, as you'd imagine. The day after, I could just about get out of bed and go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. But by the evening time, I was kind of starting to move around a bit and walk around, and went downstairs to the restaurant to get some tea and some juice and stuff. And I was, typically people aren't usually up and walking around after hypothermia, but I managed it, and I was surprised. I was like, okay, that was better than I thought. And then a few days later, it kicked in again, and it was like a herx, but a few times up. Very, very intense, as you can expect. Obviously, Lyme disease in your body has just been killed. So the cytokine response from that, all of that going into your bloodstream, going into all your organs, flooding it, is just insane. It really is. It'll probably be one of the most intense herxes that you'll experience, at least in my case. But the good thing is, because you're at the clinic, you can just tell them straight away how you're feeling, and they will know, based on your symptoms, what to give you in an IV, and it really helps with the symptoms. Again, that's one of the many benefits of going in a clinical setting, is navigating all these intense things, but you have clinicians there, and you can just tell them exactly what's going on, and they help you. So I was obviously experiencing a lot of side effects and symptoms, very, very intense, herxing. But they gave me a lot of measures to reduce it. But obviously it was still a problem. After that, so that was leading into the weekend. Then the Monday onwards, I was doing some more therapies back in the treatment room, just to kind of, again, prepare the body. But leading up to the second one, I still wasn't really recovered. Again, this is tapping back into how sensitive I was. I thought I was doing okay. Then it really went downhill for me. And I was really struggling going into the second one, like more apprehensive than the first one. Because everybody else that I spoke to there, they said that had already done the two. They said the second one wasn't as intense as the first one. So I was like, awesome, okay, this should be a breeze in comparison to the first one. But leading into the second one, I still hadn't recovered. I still felt very sketchy, and I was very, again, apprehensive and nervous going into the second one because I hadn't recovered from the first one. I was almost going to delay it a few days just to see if I'd improve, but I was just like, let's just get it over and done with. Anyway, and so the whole same process again, hypothermia. The second time round, I barely struggled to wake up, and it hit me even more intensely than the first one, which again was a rarity. Everyone else that I spoke to, they're like, it was easier for them. For me, absolutely not. It was even more intense for me, and it made me very, very ill, as you could say. That the herx, or the entire process was such a huge burden on my body. I actually struggled to walk for a couple of days after. It was insane. But again, I'm so sensitive to everything. I wasn't surprised. I was surprised how intense it was, but I knew my body it would catch up eventually, and it would be insane for me, and it was. But everyone else I spoke to, it wasn't a problem for them. So I think another factor that comes into play when going into doing something like hypothermia is your kind of general resilience level and health and conditioning level going in. I'm pretty immobile. I can just barely walk, basically, when I'm at home anyway. I have no cardio, no conditioning levels. I'm hypersensitive to everything. That's why I struggled. But other people that went there, they still walk around. Some people still, are able to exercise, go to the gym. If you have that kind of layer of resilience and that extra kind of strength, you'll probably be fine, to be honest. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be rough, but you'll be fine. But if I can get through it and get through the other side, I think anyone can, to be honest. So don't let it put you off. I just want to put it out there as information, just so you're aware. So yeah, once you finish the first two hypothermias, if you're there for the full 5 weeks and you're doing the co-infection treatments, then this is what happens. If you're there just doing hypothermia and then you're done, or you're doing the gut rebuild, great. You're out there in 2-3 weeks. Good for you. But like me, I've got 4 or 5 co-infections. Then you do the co-infections treatment. That's not so bad. You're still recovering for the following 2 weeks from hypothermia, to be honest. So the co-infection treatment is every single morning you have a riboflavin IV, which doesn't hurt, but riboflavin in the veins destroys them. So every kind of 2-3 days, I was constantly getting a new IV line in a different vein, and then it would just stop working. It would get really swollen and blow. They'd have to do another one. 2 days later, do another one. That's the most frustrating thing. It's just managing the IVs, because you always have one on you at all times. It's very annoying, but it's just part of the process. So you have the riboflavin IV first thing in the morning, and then you get laser treatment, where they literally just put a fibre optic laser in the same IV line after into the vein, and then you just sit there for an hour, and then that's it. That's easy. You just watch TV, even though it's all in German, or listen to music. Job done. That's kind of easy. The hard part is just, again, the veins and the pain that you get in the veins and all the different IV lines. Frustrating, but there you go. Then the final week, the 5th week, is the gut rebuild. So you start with a colonoscopy and a gastroscopy. I could never say that word. Just to see what's going on. And then they obviously look at what's going on with your gut in terms of the flora. They see if you have any kind of polyps or ulcers, or if you have gastritis, and they can obviously help you and treat you with that. Thankfully, I didn't have that. I've suffered with all that stuff before, and it's not fun, but I didn't have it this time around, which is great. And then they inject some probiotics up you, and then for the next 3 days after that, you just have a probiotic enema, where you just go in first thing into the office, get it done, and then you're away. All the while, you are getting additional IV support, and you do something called a mito box, which is, depending on your needs, like I've got a lot of heavy metals because of my tattoos. I had a lot of metal chelators, and to be honest, I had to stop those because that was messing with me. I think there was too much chelation going on, certainly neurologically. Like, it just felt like there was a lot of things being mobilized in my brain, and it was not fun at all, so I had to stop those. But you'll do something called mito box, so you just get hooked up to this kind of electrode pads that go on your arms and legs, and it just puts this electrical current into your nervous system, supposedly, whilst you're getting an IV, and it supposedly just increases the effectiveness of the IV. Who knows? But I had to stop it anyway because it was too intense. So that's a brief overview of the 5 weeks that I did there. It was a long 5 weeks. It definitely felt like 5 weeks. I was just in the room. Again, because my mobility was so low, I wasn't really able to get out. I went to one restaurant once to get some takeaway, to get back to my room. There's a really good Thai place across the street where I got some nice pho. But obviously other people that were there during the treatment, they were more mobile. They were going out and kind of meeting up in the evenings and stuff. There's a good camaraderie. That's one of the best things about the whole place, is just you're in it together. Everyone else is there for the same reason. You've all gone from the same journey together, so you identify and know what they're dealing with without even having to talk to them, really. But obviously you do talk to them. There's some amazing people that really helped me out whilst I was there and supported me, which was very helpful, because I went alone. They give the option of going with someone. If you have that option and it's viable, do it. It will just make your life much easier. But I managed it alone. It wasn't easy, but I'm here, so I got through it. It's all good. So moving on to the food, there is a restaurant on site, of course. It's all in-house. You live in the clinic. You sleep in the clinic. You eat in the clinic. There's a restaurant there. You obviously need to tell them your dietary needs. I told them I'm gluten-free and dairy-free. They seem to ignore the dairy-free part, but I knew it was going to be intense there anyway, so I kind of just let things slip a bit and had some dairy anyway, because I missed it. It was nice. But yeah, the food, I'll share some photos on the screen. Some days the meals were great, like proper home-cooked, hearty stuff, really nice stuff, or like fish fillets with, potatoes and vegetables, that kind of stuff. Other days, not great, like a sausage with pasta or chips. So I had a conversation with the nutritionist that you have when you get there. I'm very dialed in with my nutrition anyway. I have been for the last 15 plus years. I already know this stuff, to not have inflammatory foods, fried foods, inflammatory oils, breads, glutens and grains in general. It's very irritating for the gut. Even if you're not, gluten intolerant, I still avoid gluten, that kind of thing, because it's still inflammatory, even though, again, I miss it dearly, but I just don't have it. But the kitchen don't seem to adhere to the nutritionist's advice that they give you when you leave the clinic. That's something that needs work. All the meals should be completely clean in terms of ingredients, in terms of how it's prepared, what they use to cook it. You shouldn't have fried food. You shouldn't have inflammatory foods ever. It shouldn't even be on the menu, but it is, and you get served it. So some days you get food and it's like, that looks nice. Some days you get food and it's like, why am I being given this? One of my dinners was pancakes with jam in it, full of sugar, gluten pancakes. That was the dinner. That was one of the days. That was insane. I couldn't believe it. So bring some snacks, some healthy snacks with you as well. There are some shops nearby where you can get some extra stuff. There's a really good health store across the street where I got some good stuff from as well. Sauerkraut, I put that straight in the fridge and was eating that during and after the antibiotics. But yeah, the food there, it's a mixed bag, definitely. But it will sustain you. You get 3 meals a day. There's always a supply of fruit juices and fresh fruits and stuff available. And coffee and tea machines, all the usual stuff. If you like drinking tea like me in the evenings, bring a little kettle. I didn't. They just turn off the machines after like 7 o'clock, which is really annoying. And there you go. So moving on to the staff and some annoyances, to be honest. Positives. If you're in the new wing, you'll have nurse Natalie, Australian. She was a godsend. She made the entire journey so much easier and so much more comfortable because she's the best nurse I've ever met, and she's, I think, the best asset that company has, to be honest. If you get to see and have Natalie look after you, you're in good hands, because to be honest, on the days when she wasn't in, the other nurses were, they don't really know what you're dealing with personally, because Natalie obviously gets to know you and understands exactly what you're going through and asks you multiple times during the day how you're doing and knows what to give you and who to talk to and where to guide you. Whereas some of the other nurses, again, they don't really know what's going on, or there's sometimes a language barrier, and it can feel a bit unsafe if you're really, really unwell and you can't articulate how you're feeling and they can't understand you anyway. Then it can be a bit daunting, to be honest. But if you got Natalie in, you're in good hands. Then one of the doctors, Dr. Bjork, I can't remember his first name, I think it's Frank, I want to say. Dr. Bjork, he is awesome as well. If the entire place was just him, Dr. Bjork and Natalie, just clones of those two, it would be the best clinic in the entire world. It really would. Again, yeah, Dr. Bjork, he would always sit down and be actively listening and actually fully explain everything, take his time to explain what's going on, listen to what's going on, give you really good advice and suggestions of what to do next throughout the entire journey and even what to do after. He's very, very helpful. But there are, a couple of other staff that they need some work. They need some interventions for sure. One of the doctors, I'm not going to say any names because it's not really fair, but one of the doctors, he was in charge of a lot of the IVs, like the miter boxes, and he was just late all the time. I'd have to, I can't walk, but I'm having to walk around a clinic some days for 30, 40 minutes to try and find him to do the thing that's in my schedule. And that was annoying, to say the least. And it wasn't just me, it was pretty much everyone else that was there had the same problem with the same doctor. Never on time, could never get hold of him. But I get it. From the other side, it is a clinic. There are obviously people that have needs that are sometimes more urgent than yours. I get it. But it's still frustrating. And also, he would sometimes do the IV lines and he'd always just miss the vein and mess it up and try it 2 or 3 times, out of ego maybe, and he just wouldn't get it and have to call in someone else, and then they'll do it first thing. That's painful, of course. And then there's a younger guy there that's in charge of the schedules. Everyone's schedules is always messed up. Mine was messed up. He's meant to be like the client's kind of liaison person. So he's supposed to liaise between you and other staff members. I never saw him. He's supposed to check in on you daily. I saw him he came to my room once, I think. Never there. I'd always have to check my schedule and see that there were things missing or see that things didn't make sense and have to take it to the doctors and be like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I'd have to that doesn't make any sense. And have to get him to then change it and fix it. but it's his job. It shouldn't need fixing in the first place. Like there was one day where I had hyperbaric and then another oxygen therapy back to back, but they're kind of like polarizing, and it didn't make sense for them to be back to back. Surely he would know that. I saw it straight away. He didn't. So when you get your schedule, just be very thorough with it. Run it by a few doctors as well, and to say, does this make sense? Should that be there? Should there be this many of treatments here? Should there be that many treatments there? Get it checked out. And there's also another instance of the same guy, unfortunately, with a younger patient that was there, and he was saying some inappropriate things, I think, unprofessional things to who I believe was quite vulnerable at the time. It could be just his nature, but his nature wasn't professional in that instance. And I hope if anyone from the clinic watches this, it's a learning experience and it's not something that happens again, to be honest, because it's not cool. But yeah, that's the unfortunate side. But overall, it's a positive experience, for sure. Communication needs work. There's a lack of process. The onboarding process, the entire thing, there's a lack of communication. There's a lack of just, in general, processes that need to be put in place. Things like when I was leaving, I was supposed to get a report that summarised the entire thing. I didn't know about that until someone told me about it. And then I asked, and they're like, oh yeah, here it is. If I didn't ask, I wouldn't have got it. And things like, I didn't get my dark glass blood analysis done. That's supposed to be done at the very first kind of few days when you get there, because then they can use that as information to dictate treatments whilst you're there. I got it done the last week and got the results of that on the last day when I was leaving. Made no sense. Again, oversights that shouldn't happen in the first place. But nowhere's perfect. But still, St. George is regarded as the gold standard of doing hypothermia. So I guess the final thing would be, would I still recommend it? I'll 100% tell you in 6 months' time, I guess, when I retest. But even with all the downsides, I would still recommend going, for sure. Even though it's brutal for me. I could barely walk. It was really intense. I hated it when I was there, being stuck in the room, going to treatments day in, day out, very laborious, very exhausting. Some days you have really, really long days where you just want to just sleep, but you're just back to back doing treatments and IVs and various different things. But again, it's the shortcut. So I would, for sure, still recommend it, to be honest. So yeah, the plan will be to have I'll break down the chapters, of course, so it's a bit easier for you to digest. I'll also have, in the comments, I'll probably leave like a list of things that I'd suggest that you take as well. I think one of the critical things, I don't know what they don't suggest to take it, is a IV PICC line cover for the shower. Obviously, you have an IV line just stuck in your arm or stuck in your hand the whole time, but you can't go in the shower, you can't get it wet, otherwise it get risk of infection. So you can get from Amazon, it's just like £10, $10, whatever it is, just like this PVC cover that goes over it with these bands that kind of just stick to your arm, and it just waterproofs it, basically. That's one suggestion that they should A, either provide you with when you get to your room, or B, tell you to bring with you. But again, some of these things they just don't think about. I don't know why. But yeah, I'll give more suggestions in the comments below as well as I think them. But yeah, any questions about what I've covered in this video? I know it's been expansive, but I wanted to give you all the information that I had, because going into this, I was searching for videos like this, and they didn't exist. So I wanted to do this for you if you're considering going there, because it is expensive and intense. It's just an insane thing to do, it really is. And yeah, I covered the cost already, but I mean, so it's 40,000 or 41,000 euros for me. You pay it up front, of course, it's in one go. It sounds a lot, but it makes sense. The amount of treatments that you get, the amount of care that you get, I had probably about 150 different IVs, all the different treatments. You live in the clinic, of course. The price makes sense. They're definitely not price gouging. The price is logical for what you're getting. It's just obviously a lot up front. So, that's typically the hurdle for a lot of people, is they just can't afford that bulk upfront thing. If your insurance can cover it, great. If you can get some sort of long-term 0% interest loan or something. I'm not a financial advisor, obviously, but if you can make it work, it's something for you to strongly consider. But yeah, that is it. My goal is for you to just get well, get healthy, as is the goal for all of us. So any questions, as I say, let me know below and I'll get back to you. And here's to your health.